seminarian Nguyen Quang Truong, no other than Professor Paula Nicole Eugenio. And Professor Bex Ringor will serve as the principal critic. And so, without much further ado, I would like to present to you seminarian Nguyen Quang Trong for his presentation.
So, good morning, everyone. Before today, I will defend my thesis about the topic challenging materialism using the notion of authenticity. So, before entering the defense, I would like to ask you to join with me in the invocation. A prayer by Soren Kierkegaard. O God, when at times our strength is taken from us, when sorrow overcomes us like a kind of fog, in which our vision is plugged into a dark night, when our hearts do tremble with our loss, then take us and strengthen the conviction in our hearts that in death, no less than in life, we belong to you. Amen. So once again, good morning, everyone. My thesis is titled Challenging Materialism Using the Notion of Authenticity. This is abstract. Chapter 1. The main problem of Chapter 1, how does the notion of authenticity challenge materialism? In order to answer this main question, researchers would like to come up with three sub-questions. First, how does materialism hinder humans to live authentically? Second, what is the notion of authenticity? Third, how does the notion of authenticity challenge materialism? The conceptual framework. The blue circle represents the notion of authenticity. This will be discussed solely on the philosophy of Kierkegaard's notion of authenticity. It will be discussed in chapter 3. Second, the orange circle represents materialism and its problem, which will be discussed in chapter 2 of this study. Last, the green arrows connect blue circle and orange circle. That presents how Kierkegaard's notion of authenticity challenges materialism, which will be discussed in chapter 4 of this study. Chapter 2, Understanding Materialism and its Problem. So, before discussing about the problem and understanding materialism, researchers would like to come up with the idea of hedonism, because it could serve as a prelude to materialism. First, what is hedonism? Hedonism is theory identify that pleasure and pain is as the only important elements of whatever phenomena they are designed to describe. Thus, human beings should pursue pleasure and avoid pain. The role of hedonism in this study helps to understand the way of human to achieve happiness in life through material things. Materialism. In the context of this study, it has been defined as the theory that physical well-being and worldly possessions constitute the greatest good and highest value in life. Looking back to the history, we see that materialism has arisen from the beginning of Greek philosophy, and it's been played out until our time. Although they also have the same thinking that through materialism we can find the happiness. Now we come to the problems of materialism. The first that is self-centeredness. Self-centeredness, which causes human beings to be isolated from others, detached from society. Now one only focus on oneself. They try to pursue their own interests and do not care about other feelings. Therefore, those people who are self-centered in way of searching happiness through materialism would have low self-esteem. Self-centeredness makes people have close interrelationship with others. Now people just thinking only in himself only. It's also the time that one being selfishness. That earthly satisfaction. So the satisfaction is derived from many different emotions. The satisfaction feeling is defined as the emotion pattern like joy, interest, and surprise. It may be also dissatisfaction as described as the emotion of anger, disgust, and surprise. So if one are able to accommodate his desire for materialism, he will be satisfied. Otherwise, he will be dissatisfied. So materialists are irritated by this equity of comparisons and feel enraged, inequitable, unjust, and envious. Thus, materialism has both positive and negative implications for life satisfaction. That's consumerism. Consumerism is the view that one personal happiness and well-being are inextricably linked to one level of personal consumption, especially in the way of acquisition of material goods. With that, it involves three issues. First, that the environmental issue. As we know that the increase of demand for wood products will involve environment degradation. This could lead more population emission, increased land use and deforestation, and accelerated climate change. The second issue is that individual identity. In the words of both Francis, consumerism is conceptually understanding an attitude that allows individuals to avoid moral commitment, that allows people to take advantage of others, to treat others as mere objects. The third issue that the global inequality. As social beings, we compare ourselves to others. Our income and consumption is the level that's some important way which we related ourselves with others. Since many people assume that consumerism is the way that they express the level in society. Chapter 3, Soren Kierkegaard's notion of authenticity. It is short biography of Soren Kierkegaard. For Kierkegaard to have an authentic life, the individual should proceed through three stages of existence, namely aesthetic, ethical, and religious. The first, the aesthetic stage. It is the most fragile and unstable of all stages of existence. This stage primary motivation is pleasure. So the individual in this state immerse themselves in pleasures, who seek after what might be pleasurable, not as much as creative possessions. And this stage is just a temporary stage. That is why it involves some problems. First, that dependent attitude. It means to say that the people who live in this state ultimately lack self-control over their own success because they do not have the self. For them, the choices are determined by the emotion, environment, and others. Second problem that is emptiness and restlessness. Their continuous pursuit for new experience creates a new zealous restlessness in them. Last, that freedom, atheist person may reserve themselves from their freedom by withdrawing from serious relationship, and to reserve his freedom, one shall not make any commitment. Because of those problems, one should face to the choice of abandon to despair, bring himself to despair, or moving up to the next level, which is ethical stage. So for ethical stage, the individuals see themselves as a part of bigger thing than himself, like society, nation, or organization. Now the individual is aware of good and bad choices because he realized that he is not lived alone, he lives with others. That's why they try to develop their responsibility not only for themselves, for others as well. So Kierkegaard described this state as the state of choosing self. At this level, one is able to be oneself through choosing to do this or not. According to Kierkegaard, the ethical person do not have any relationship with God other than a good moral conduct. But however, in life, there's some situation that beyond his control. That's why the only way that they will be violating with the laws. Now they will concerned about that and thinking that that is beauty. So the only object become that is the God. So that the movement from ethical to the next level that is religious stage by a commitment and the leap of faith. So the last stage, the religious stage, is forgiveness is the last and highest stage of human existence. Because in this state, the individual is not only a part of society, but is also a small part of whole creation of God. So the religious stage requires a person to have complete and utter faith in the existence of God. That's why faith is essential for those who want to reach this stage. We say that science could reveal a lot of mysteries, but still there is a universe of uncovered left to us. Thus, faith helps us to see beyond life. In this religious state, one established a unique and subjective relationship with God. Another concept of selfhood. For Kierkegaard, selfhood is something that should be created and formed, not something possessing in intrinsic essence to be further developed. It means to say that the self is not something that we have automatically, rather is something that we need to become. So to know what differs, we need to know ourselves deeper. Thus, there's the need to discover our own uniqueness and develop our own self-awareness. And since God represents the ground of authentic selfhood, that's why the personal relationship with God is very important for Kierkegaard. So, Kierkegaard said that there's the need to be a true self, and relation is the important factor that helps one to be true self. Thus, one needs to seek God and build his relationship with Him in order to have true self. Lastly, the idea of authenticity. For him, authenticity is being considered as a process of examination of the self and the world outside, a discovery of its own self in a world where it lost itself. Moreover, authenticity is an act of being willing with passion and sincerely to become one is, true self or genuinely. So the authentic individual who is constantly possessed of movement without definite resource. Chapter 4, Kierkegaard's notion of authenticity challenges materialism. First, Kierkegaard's notion of authenticity challenges self-centeredness. To conquer these temptations of self-centeredness, Kierkegaard invites one to have commitment and responsibility in order to manage his desire for pleasure. He asks one to treat others equally, so that one may not fall in temptation of narcissism. He also claims that the only power and glory one needs to seek is the glory and power of God. Thus, one needs to build a good relationship with others and God accordingly to the love of God. Because in the presence of God, one may find the true self. Second, Kierkegaard's authenticity challenges earthly satisfaction. For Kierkegaard, one could manage and adjust his or her satisfaction through commitment. One needs to commit himself or herself by following the rules and laws of the society or community. However, these things are just human morality and ethics. Therefore, Kierkegaard suggests human object to commitment that is God. Since God is absolute object, human could find the authentic in his presence. Moreover, in the love of God, one found the deepest and fullest satisfaction. So through the love of God, one finds the real and authentic satisfaction. Plus, the Kierkegaard authenticity challenges consumerism. There are two characteristics that Kierkegaard suggests for one to overcome this temptation. First, the self-control. It is the capacity to manage and change the responses in order to avoid negative behavior, promote positive ones, and achieve long-term goals. Thus, everyone is able to do that, but the matter is how one disciplines himself. So Kierkegaard promotes the way that to have self-control, which is seeking self-knowledge. Thus, in order to become ethical being, one must to have self-knowledge of oneself. Therefore, the more he knows himself, the more he is able to control himself from desire. For this reason, self-control could help consumerists manage his life better. Now, before buying anything, he should be concerned about his situation. Another characteristic that is self-giving, which is the ability of humans willing to deprive themselves, or in other words, that give up their selfishness in order to serve others. Since consumerists might detach themselves from others' suffering, thus self-giving would make them aware of others' suffering. When they are unselfish, they would more concerned about others. Moreover, in Kierkegaard's words, self-giving could be understood as the self-denial. Self-denial is Christian love, which the love of God as well as the love for others. Consequently, self-denial elevates one overcome his or her selfish desire, like consumerism, to the universal duty of love, which is neighbor. For the finding of this study, first, materialism hinders humans to live ethically. Humans being always have a tendency to search for happiness and meaningful of life. Therefore, many people choose to achieve happiness through materialism things. We also cannot deny those benefits which humans could have through materials. However, human beings do not live alone. We live together with others. That's why, in terms of materialism, people always encounter three problems: self-centeredness, earthly satisfaction, consumerism. Thus, all these issues would make one live inauthentically. Second, Kierkegaard's notion of authenticity. The concept of authenticity for Kierkegaard is not only the individual uniqueness and genuineness, but also the relation with God and others. Thus, he promotes the different stages of experience existence, wherein he portrays that our life is constant becoming the self. Thus, our experience of individual in defining meaning of life. The stage lead a better evaluation of life. The more the individual will transcend, the more effective he or she will be. In addition, one only can realize his true self through God, and therefore it is necessary for one to build his relationship with God. And when one acts following the will of God, one will find true meaning of life. Last, Kierkegaard's notion of authenticity challenge materialism. Materialism is the way that humans satisfy his desire of pleasure to find happiness in life. However, one follow this way may be informed to live inauthentically. Thus, the notion of authenticity could be the measure to challenge materialism. First, through the commitment and responsibilities and building personal relationship with God, one would overcome his self-centeredness. Second, to challenge earthly satisfaction. According to Kierkegaard, one could manage and assert his or her satisfaction through commitment. One commits to commit himself or herself by following the laws, the rule of society. Plus, to challenge consumerism, he suggests that each individual should practice two characteristics of self-control and self-giving. Thus, self-control would balance one life, and self-giving remind one to aware of others. Then, through God's love, one serves and loves others as himself or herself. This is the really time in which one lives meaningful and authentically. Thank you for your listening.
Thank you, Nguyen Quang Truong, for that very concise presentation of your work. So we are going to proceed to questions, evaluations from the members of the panel. We are going to begin with the principal critique, and I'm sure we are already informed that this portion has 35 minutes. No? So I think Professor Blaise, being the principal critic, we can give him more time to scrutinize the work of seminarian Nguyen Quang Truong.
So, good morning, brother. First of all, congratulations for finishing this work. I know how hard you worked on this manuscript and in this research. However, I would like to clarify what is your intention in this research, and what do you mean by the word challenging in your title?
My intention that to find the authentic way, not only the living through the materialism that people nowadays they are thinking, because if materialism have done a lot of things and benefits, like the comfortable and fastest, easy way. So that's why they think that only materialism is the only way they can achieve happiness in life. So that's why I try to challenge this. I think that is not only way. That's just temporary desire, temporary happiness. So that's why I use the word challenge, fantastic, the word.
So, your intention is to have this kind of competition with materialism because you use the word challenge. You do not want to criticize it using Kierkegaard's notion of authenticity.
Yes, this could be the critic, it could be a measure to challenge, not only comparison, but it's more critic and attack for that idea. That this wrong idea, wrong thinking, according to those of Kierkegaard.
Because in your manuscript, what appears to me is that you are trying to criticize it, to scrutinize materialism using the philosophy of Kierkegaard, particularly his notion of authenticity. Now, I do not have a problem with that, but the title must be attuned to the intention of the researcher. So, my first suggestion is to find a more fitting word other than challenging. Because it appears to me, just correct me if I am wrong, that your intention is to show how materialism is hampering or hindering uh, the human person to reach the religious stage. Am I correct on that point?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Next, how does Kierkegaard conceive material things or the body, for instance? Does he see it as total evil or not?
It's not really total evil, sir, but it's not a first level or second level of the his stages of existence. That way I have presented that at 3 stages. So that's why one need to move the highest stage to live authentically. So for him that is not evil, but it's just remain in the lowest stage of life.
Okay. Because in your page 3, you stated here, there are many philosophical problems that make one live inauthentically, like materialism, free will, modernization, etc. I do not have a problem with materialism and modernization, but I think The problem lies when you say that free will makes us inauthentic. And to lead you towards a question, is choosing something that is authentic does not spring from our free will.
Can you clarify or reframe this? No, sir.
So for example, if you want to live a religious life, if we want to reach the next stage coming from the ecstatic stage, does it not come from free will?
This is free will, but free will according to the will of God. And if you are not know God, that's according to your conscience. The conscience tells you to do that. It's not because of you being forced by others, but you realize that is good.
So you mean to say that the free will cannot directly contribute to the elevation on the next stage of life without the aid of the will of God?
I don't mean that, sir. But actually, it's if you do said you know God, but if you are the you are not know God, so you are the one who realizes it in yourself and the self-awareness, and that is we call that the conscience. You tell you that is what is your free will. Free will you need to do level up, so you can also can move up to the next level without the intention that it should be a God. But for us, Christian, we know that it's object, absolute object that is God, and in God we can find the true authentic.
Okay. So choosing God comes from free will. And therefore, I think you need to revise that portion wherein you categorically claim that free will makes us inauthentic. Because it would be a contradiction on your argument. Okay, so that's my point on that specific on that specific claim of yours. Now, in your definition of terms, you define authenticity according to Jacob Godong using his secondary material in search of authenticity from Kierkegaard to Camus. But I highly suggest you go directly to Kierkegaard. Okay? And then next, in one of your chapters, particularly chapter 3, you mentioned there the contribution of Jeremy Bentham in hedonism, and then you even mentioned Thomas Hobbes. But it was presented in a very political way. Now, I want to ask you, what are the influences, or perhaps did Kierkegaard ever respond to them?
Actually, they didn't tell directly to the way to describe or to work on notion of materialism, but his way is authenticity. Other than like Thomas Hobbes, he have the philosophy to work on that materialism. Like he said that materialism is substance of body, like that. Or like Bentham, yes, the way of working on the hedonism or utilitarianism, the way to achieve happiness. So that are the different ideas, but they come to the aim that they make people to realize that what is the true way or authentic way or the ethical way to achieve or challenge happiness, achieve happiness and challenge materialism.
Okay, so you place there these philosophers and their philosophical thoughts only to state how materialism and hedonism develop. But there is no direct relation to how Kierkegaard respond to authenticity. For instance, there was no any thin line of connection between them.
There is because like Thomas, like Bentham and Thomas Hobbes also emphasize that one should achieve it with the moral way. This is also being in the second state of Kierkegaard already. But how the way that because they are in the first philosopher visitors, so he provide the way first, and they are Thomas Hope and Ben Tam as the way after him and come back after subordinate more idea for that.
Okay, so I understand that point. But the problem that I see here is that they are going to a different direction. So Kierkegaard, for example, is traversing through existentialism and ethics, while Hobbes and Bentham wrote these works that you've mentioned in relation to their political philosophy. But then, this is the good point in your work, and I affirm that. You try to connect the dots. However, it is not yet as clear as what I have expected. So, what I would suggest is to become more specific in terms of the criticism that you want to say against materialism, against hedonism. And again, you have to make it clear in your manuscript why there is a necessity to criticize materialism, but not treat it in an extreme way possible. And that is to say, to cancel out everything that is good about the body, about the material things in the world. Okay?
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So maybe I'll go back to you after our next panel, Father Keats.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Blaise, for that very sharp comment. So, that's what I have observed in your work. It's, for me, well done. The technical part is properly done. However, I still observe some or encounter some typographical error, and I'm going to send you the soft copy wherein I underline all those errors, because I did your work page by page. And here I am going to put emphasis on my observation and logical consistency of your work. So now I'm going to ask you, because I am not satisfied with your explanation concerning materialism as a hindrance to authenticity. Philosophically, explain to me why materialism hinders authenticity. What is in materialism that hinders authenticity, or what do you mean by that authenticity?
That's first materialism, as I have shown 3 documents before that have involved in self-centeredness problem or consumerism or strictly satisfaction rather than physical development of man. They think that they didn't realize that in life. They think that they only see the benefits, those benefits that they could have through material things. Through technology and science, they can make their life easy and comfortable. So they don't want to go out of their comfort zones. So that's why they don't know that those things they are really attacked in that materialism, and for self-centeredness, they said that because of self-centeredness, they really attack only themselves, forget on themselves, that they ignore others.
Okay, so you say your argument is materialism ignites self-centeredness. I become self-centered when, so, well, self-centeredness is not something authentic for Kierkegaard, right?
Yes.
Okay, so however, is materialism affirms, or does materialism affirm subjectivity?
You rephrase.
Okay, because you need to understand notion of Kierkegaard's subjectivity for you to really understand the claim of materialism. So what is in materialism that hinders subjectivity in Kierkegaard?
Actually, I not really tackle on the idea of subjectivity in Kierkegaard, but it's also the essential part that I remember to the class in the class. Subjectivity is something that comes from that just use yourself. That is the subject of the thing to decide it, something to do, something to do that. So if materialism is the subjectivity, it will overcompose you. So it here that forget that you must be the one who decided and use it properly.
Okay, because we have also discussed this in phenomenology, no? Now, my follow-up question, can the person be authentic without first reclaiming its subjectivity in Kierkegaard? Can you become an authentic person without reclaiming your subjectivity?
I think according to idea of Kierkegaard, no, sir. Because if one do not realize, or maybe if one is able to, you ask
Now,
them,
if there is no subjectivity, then what? Who you are? If your subjectivity is not affirmed, then what about your existence?
no, actually, the idea that the self, the true self that one realize, the true self is the way that he can become subjectivity already. So idea of Kierkegaard here is just make one realize and following up the intention of being true self, be aware of true self only. But actually, I think that one also can be subjectivity of his existence. He is owner of his existence.
Yes, that's why. That's what I observed in your work. You are confused and you have not understood. Actually, you have mentioned there that, of course, in order to be authentic first, no one can be authentic without first affirming our subjectivity because it's all that we have. That our consciousness, we are being a body. That's why Sir Blaise asked you regarding the notion of the body, which really constitutes us. And if you deny this, then you can never live an authentic human. You cannot have an authentic human existence. And that's very clear in Kierkegaard, which I think you have not. You claim, well, what does it mean to be self-centered? Why material things would somehow lead us to self-centeredness? Why for you? Because material things can be manipulated by us also. Or it does not, they do not give us an opportunity to become a subject. I hope you have investigated Kierkegaard's difference with objective reflection and subjective reflection, wherein you have not actually included in your work. And that would make it very clear why materialism is contrary to authenticity. So, as what you have explained, materialism affirms that the human person, everything, even consciousness, are just aggregates of what?
Inauthentic life. That's the obstacle, become obstacle.
No, the materialism. What is the main claim of materialism concerning reality? What we are, even you and me.
Like in the idea of tomato is a substance.
Yes, we are just aggregates and concatenations of atoms. And so, if you listen to our discussion in phenomenology, and what would be the consequence if everything, including you, including consciousness, are mere aggregates of atoms?
And you might simulate the work activity.
Okay, because actually, well, I hope you have understood your work because you explained there also on the last part of that section, you explained the different views of materialism, and I think go to your work on I think that's in your chapter summary, wherein you page.
Sorry, chapter 577.
Okay, what about materialism? The different position on materialism. Okay, so I cannot find the page, I think, on page 82, let me try, because what I've read as the soft copy, that it's an affirmation that, okay, this is the summary, that it's an affirmation that everything are just mere combinations of atoms and so on. And the consequence of that would be even our subjectivity, consciousness, free will are all illusion, right? So because materialism, there is no room for your free will, as what Professor Blaise has asked. Everything is nullified because ultimately you can reduce to their basic material constitution, which is the atom or whatever that be. Now, my problem is you connect materialism with hedonism. Okay? Now, considering hedonism, experience of pleasure and pain, is experience of pleasure and pain for you material or somehow can pleasure and pain be experienced without consciousness, without the subject? Do they exist out there, or the pleasure could only be possible with an experiencing subject?
Yes, this need it subject to experience because with according to studying phenomenology, they said that without subject is no object. So that means that without subject feeling, so it's no appearance of pleasure and pain there.
Okay, so it means hedonism affirms the subject existence, right?
Yes.
And of course, it's even pleasure is even subjective. Like one can find delight, pleasure in durian, and others would find it totally obnoxious or unpleasurable, right? Okay, so is subjectivism or is hedonism like materialism then? Are they the same?
It's not the same, sorry. I think that
Okay, why?
because subject is the one who decide to.
No, hedonism and subjectivism make them different. Why they are different and not actually comparable?
Yes, because hedonism is not the way that one achieve materialism, but subjectivism is the one who achieve, not the way that hedonism is the way. So it's not comparable in that sense.
Okay, I think I'm trying to get what you're trying to say. Do you now say that materialism does not give room to the existence of the subject, right? Because ultimately everything is matter. while hedonism affirms the existence of the subject because pleasure and pain could not be experienced without you, without a body, and so on. Okay, so it means they are not totally the same or comparable. Now my problem is, what's wrong with pleasure and pain?
There's no wrong and putting that you should achieve the pleasure and avoid pain. But the way that you abuse this or you think that so selfishness. So when you come with the idea of hedonism, you are only thinking themselves or only yourself only. So that's why you can easily to satisfy others to just have to achieve your own selfish or your own pleasure. You it's no other feeling. That's the problem of hedonism there.
Okay, but it's not actually totally a problem, right? Because as human being who does not enjoy eating delicious adobo, who does not, even Pope Francis says that pleasure is not a sin as long as, of course, they are practiced in a right way, right? And who wants also to deliberately experience pain. Pain is not something evil, or avoiding pain does not make us unethical, right? Okay, so my problem is when you somehow connect this hedonistic materialism, I don't think it's the right term. It could be material hedonism because it's an experience of pleasure coming from purely material thing. But there is no such thing as hedonistic materialism because, well, materialism does not affirm the subject itself.
That's why I recognize that's not no term hedonic citizen.
So I think I would like to suggest to focus more on consumerism rather than, because your discussion of hedonism here is that hedonism is contrary to subjectivity, where in fact it's not. It affirms subjectivity. It leads us to become authentic person also because only in experiencing pleasure and pain that we experience that we are, that we exist, that you are.
Yes, thank you for that.
Yes, that's one. Well, you can emphasize consumerism because consumerism is an attitude wherein we can find pleasure in material things. And I think I forget something still that I would like to. And well, I don't think the aesthetic part for Kierkegaard, do you think it's something deplorable? The aesthetic, because you named three states aesthetic.
And really just other three stages.
Yes, because he does not say aesthetic is evil or because the experience of pleasure is something that affirms our subjectivity. And only in that way for Kierkegaard that you can become authentic.
Yes, sir. Because it's did not I don't deny that those basic needs is the evil, but it's that like the lowest step that they are just basic needs that human need, but actually they are just the temporary things. So we need to search the higher level or the more that you can be have fulfillment, happiness and satisfied in life.
Okay, so that's everything that I can say about your work. Do you have something to add?
Thank you, fathers. Take note.
So just a final note, and I think this would put everything in place. Just one last question. What is the ground of existence according to Kierkegaard?
The ground of existence. What do you mean about
Where is it grounded? The existence.
the existence where is grounded that for us Christian they said that the truly authentic life for individual is existent in the presence of God. That is the idea of Kierkegaard. That is the idea of Kierkegaard. That one is really existent, truly meaningful in life when it's being in the presence of God or accordingly to the view of God.
Yes, but in its most essential form, where does existence lie? Does it lie outside of the human person, or does it lie in the person?
So in the side.
Okay.
In oneness, the way to find system, that the way to go in the or in oneness. And it's will also be related with outside world. I have confirmed in the thesis that is the process of discover yourself as uniqueness, where you and the outside world and where you lose ourselves.
Okay. And again, to help you reach a point that I think you were not able to point out. So the self is also composed of something that is material. And there you find existence. Okay? So you cannot completely deny the self. You cannot completely deny that which is material. What I think you wish to do is to moderate it, to put it in the middle and not to the extreme. Because when you say materialism or whatever isms are there, it implies that it is on the extreme and it needs fine tuning. Okay? And I think it is doable. Right? You can do that. But you also have to avoid using vocabulary.com in defining something because I saw your definition of self-giving on the last part. You say here in page 81, self-giving is something also necessary. Self-giving, which is an ability of humans willing to deprive themselves. Okay? So that is a problematic definition because it is not philosophical. And if you would analyze it, the definition, it is actually anti-philosophical and anti-Kierkegaardian. Okay? So avoid using vocabulary.com in using some definitions. So that's everything. And again, congratulations. Your work is good. All we want is for you to fine-tune it, to refine it, and to correct it accordingly. So that's my final note. Okay?
Yes, thank you, sir.
I have some for clarification lang din, Father. Siguro po, the confusion within the thesis lies on the definition of materialism. Because we have this notion, when we speak of materialism, we talk about the philosophical monism of the body, ganyan, that we are composed of atoms and whatnot. However, when he defined it in his definition of terms, he already emphasized here that the materialism that he's talking about is the parang obsession of people to gaining material possessions. So basically, what Father King suggested to focus more on consumerism is something that siguro we have to work on. But basically, that is just to clear up the confusion po na his idea of materialism is not the materialism or the materialism that he used or the concept materialism he used is not the materialism that you are thinking. Na yung parang everything is made up of atoms and whatnot. So just to clear up the confusion lang po. And with that, congratulations.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone. I take note.
Okay, thank you and congratulations, Seminarian Nguyen Quan Trong, for your presentation. So we are going to evaluate the final outcome of your presentation and your work. So may I invite everyone to please, those who are not involved in the decision, please leave the place. or not later than 2 weeks. And I think in collaboration with your advisor who is here and those who have been taking down notes of the comments, but emphasize on understanding of materialism through consumerism, because that leads to the as what we have with selfishness, and it does not allow the subject or the person to grow. And of course, it's an understanding of materialism. You must insist your position and clarify what is the materialism that actually you are trying to explain to. Okay, so here ends the thesis presentation of seminarian Nguyen Quang Truong.
Thank you for playing a second meet. So